Thank you for joining us this week on another episode of Exalted Higher. And once in a lifetime, if you're like me and you enjoy classical music, you may have an opportunity to experience a master of the art of music. My guest this week, I had the joy of meeting at a concert at one of our local churches, one of the few churches in the area that actually has a pipe organ for their main instrument of music. She has traveled the world around doing concerts in some of the most magnificent churches around the world and some of the most equally magnificent pipe organs around the world. My guest this week is Miss DIANE BISH. Thank you so much for joining us, DIANE.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here.
And I get excited, so don't mind me if I just start doing this because, and you remember when I first met you, how nervous and shaky I was. This is great.
Well, I remember that well. And I'm excited too to be here with you.
So you're known as the First Lady of the Pipe Organ. I think that's a pretty big honor, don't you?
Well, I think it is. I mean, I don't call myself that, but a magazine back in 1978 in Miami wrote that. And other articles have written it too and called me that. And so it sort of stuck.
Yeah.
It's been a long time.
So tell me, how did your career start by playing the organ? Where did that all begin?
Well, I started playing the organ when I was 14. And of course, you have to have a keyboard background.
Yeah.
And so I started when I was 6 to do that. And then I started the organ when I was 14, and my parents bought an organ for the house. And my teachers thought I had a talent, so they sent me off to probably the greatest organ teacher then. She was at the University of Oklahoma, Mildred Andrews. And she put me in national competitions and signed me up for grants to study in Europe. And I did that. And then I came back and I taught for a year. That wasn't quite what I wanted to do. And then I became the organist and artist in residence at the Coral Ridge Presbyterian Church in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And we were on television every week, our services. Then I started the Joy of Music from there.
I remember watching the services, but more importantly, I remember watching the programs, which our program here at Exalted Higher airs on Total Living Network in this area, and it does air in other places. But I so much enjoy seeing the videos, and my most exciting part of it is watching your feet on the pedals.
Most people don't get the chance to see the organist's feet on the pedals because in many churches they're hidden, you know.
Right.
So I started the Joy of Music in 1982, and it has gone, been worldwide for 39 years now. This is the 39th year of the Joy of Music. And people get to see the great cathedrals and organs of the world. And even if you go to a cathedral in Europe, you don't get to see those because they're high up on the church wall or in the high balcony. And very, very few people get to hear them or see them up close.
Right.
So the Joy of Music does that. And I know a lot of people appreciate that.
The other thing I like too about the show is that sometimes you give a little bit of history, not just of the organ, but of the church itself and even the country. I mean, it's like a geography. It's like having a geography lesson, to see the things that are going on in those towns.
But it's very important because, the church was at the center of life in the 1400s, 1300s, even the 1100s. And the organs were at the center of the church. And it's very important to see those things, to see those great cathedrals and what surrounds them and the beauty that surrounds them and the architecture and the art that's inside. So all of those are God's creation. All of those are gifts of God. And I like to put them all together so that people can see the excellence in all things and all things to God's glory.
Amen. That's beautiful. Now, how many countries have you traveled to?
Well, I've traveled to Europe 75 times to make to make programs, and then I've been in Canada and Alaska, of course, and around the United States. I have not gone. Well, I've been to South America, but I have never done a show from South America.
So what is the favorite, your favorite church and organ that you've played?
One of my favorites is Notre Dame, and I gave several concerts there, and I was very distressed when I saw it burn a couple of years ago, you know. And so they have taken the organ out and they're restoring that church, but that's one of my favorite organs.
Over 10 million people a year visit this landmark, which is found on the Île de la Cité, a small island in the middle of Paris. Notre Dame has a very personal history for me, where as a student I worshiped every Sunday morning from the organ loft of the cathedral and have played numerous concerts throughout the years on the great organ of Notre Dame.
The other is St. Bavo in Haarlem, Holland, where it's called the Mozart organ. It's a great grand glorious with gold statues, life-size statues of David and the harp, and oh, it's a magnificent. As a matter of fact, Corrie ten Boom, you know Corrie ten Boom?
Yeah.
Lived around the corner from this church. And she used to go and listen to the music of Bach on that organ. And she and I were going to do a Joy Music program together, where she talked about Bach and I played Bach on that great organ.
Did you? And it never happened? You didn't do it?
She passed away before we could. But I have done four or five recordings and Joy Music programs on that very famous organ.
difficult is it to play a pipe organ? I mean, there are these things where you call them poles, or it's like you're completely surrounded, like you're in this little basket with all these things around you. How difficult is it to know what to do when you're playing?
It's very difficult, and they're all different. All of the organs are different, and those are called stops. And each one of those stops is a different sound, either a strings stop or flute or a foundation or a trumpet or a trombone, whatever you want to call it. And every organ where you go to play, you have to find out where all those stops are, how many keyboards you have, which keyboard you're to play on, and so many other things, the acoustics of the church. And many of the churches are in the middle of town, and there's a lot of noise. The buses go around the church and outside noise. So it's pretty difficult to do recordings and television programs like that.
I think that, to me, it blows my mind at this art that you have. And we were admiring the angels behind you. And you mentioned that you got them in Austria. Was that on one of your trips to do a recording, or was it just a visit?
Yes, it was. I'm always looking for treasures, so to speak. And these angels came from an Alpine chapel, and they were owned in a small farmer's chapel in the Alps. And they're about 4.5 feet tall, and they're wood carved, and they're just magnificent.
Now let's talk a little bit about, there was an organ, the Allen organ, I think, is the one organ that you play a lot of, and they were creating a special type of organ in your honor. Can you give us a little information about that? I don't want to get it wrong. So,
well, digital organs, not a pipe organ. They're right. Digital organs, but they design all the electronics and digital things, and I designed the voicing. In other words, the voicing that I like, the sound of the trumpets, the sound of the flutes, all the sounds on the organ are what I asked them to place on my organ. And it's a wonderful instrument, and I do play concerts on those instruments a lot. The Allen Organ Company is the largest organ company in the world. Mm-hmm. Digital organ company.
Yeah, our church used to have an Allen organ, and at some point it just kind of disappeared. I don't know what happened to it, but it kind of disappeared. We only had 1 or 2 ladies in the congregation that knew how to play it. It wasn't a pipe organ, but I think it probably was a digital organ. And it just seemed to disappear. I don't know what happened to it.
Well, now they sample, which means they go and sample the sounds of the great organs in Europe, in cathedrals, pipe organs, and they bring them back, and they put those exact sounds on these digital organs, this Allen organ, and so they're really wonderful.
Welcome to the Joy of Music. My name is DIANE BISH, and today I am delighted to bring you a program of music from Octave Hall in Macungie, Pennsylvania, the home and the headquarters of the Allen Organ Company. It is my pleasure to perform on the 3-manual digital DIANE BISH signature organ. Thank you for joining us. of the great composers in the Romantic era in France was Louis DIANE, who was born in Poitiers, France in 1870. He was known for his expansive organ symphonies, and he also wrote shorter compositions for the organ. Featuring the flutes of the instrument, we now hear his impromptu.
So what's next for Miss Diane BISH?
Well, I'm going to keep making joy music programs. Next year is our 40th year that we've been on television and producing programs. And so we're going to continue to go to Europe. And there are so many famous cathedrals and organs. They're endless, you know.
Right.
And we take people with us, people that want to go and listen to the recordings and take a nice trip and see things. So it's a joy to do that. And I'm going to continue to do that.
Praise God. Praise
And
God.
in concerts when we can get through the COVID problem.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, that's right. Well, thank you so much. And if you'd like more information, we'll go ahead and get that put in the credits at the end of the show. Miss DIANE, thank you so much. And your partner over there, thank you so much for spending a little bit of time with us today.
All right. And thank you so much. And God bless you.
God bless you. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Oh, what a cutie.